This conference will
Good.
now be recorded.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our Honorable Secretary General, Dr. G.P. Agrawal, I, Dr. Sanjeev Layak, Executive Secretary, WASME, heartily welcome Dr. Somdatta Singh, a serial entrepreneur, ex-Vice Chair, NASCOM, Product Council, Board Member, Kotla Impact, and Mr. Pabir Roy, Senior Advisor, WASMA, for accepting our invitation for the webinar on diversifying and scaling a small business to a global one in crisis times. It is my privilege to welcome all the dignitaries who have taken out their valuable time to participate in this webinar. Let me brief about WASME, a global organization having member representatives in more than 100 countries, spearheading the cause and development and promotion of SMEs worldwide through policy advocacy, information dissemination, conferences, seminars, publication, network linkages, and many more since 1980. WASME has the consultative and observer status of United Nations. As you are aware of that, MSMEs are the backbone of our economy, which contributes 30% to GDP, 99% of industry share, and generate 70 to 80% of employment. Out of that, 95% constitutes micro, having turnover of less than 5 crore. Our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi's vision to empower MSMEs and calls for Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India movement, and announced a package to cater to various sections of businesses including MSMEs, and advocated for vocal for our local products and make them global. This is an opportunity for businesses and including MSMEs. And one saying is that in the face of a global crisis, well-prepared business can help protect their workers and their bottom lines. Businesses around the world are struggling to navigate the coronavirus in ways most of us likely could have ever imagined. COVID outbreak to cost on the global economy is estimated about US $40 billion. The International Monetary Fund had downgraded its global growth estimate. Excuse me. And the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has suggested global growth could be cut in half as a result of this virus. No crisis is an isolated, neatly contained incident, and the COVID-19 outbreak is exceptional by any standards. It comes with extreme scope and levels of uncertainty. Business leaders see managing a crisis as an inevitable part of their role. According to PwC's most recent global crisis survey, nearly 7 in 10 leaders have experienced at least one corporate crisis in the last 5 years in their companies, and the average number of crises experienced in these firms is greater than 3. COVID-19 will test many business leaders to the limit. The key to managing any crisis is preparation. Here are some possible actions that you as a leader can take to ensure your organization is in the best shape, shape possible to withstand what's ahead and mitigate the effects and consider scaling companies up, manage cash flow, look for new clients, empower or remote workforce, shift your spending, stay calm, revisit your crisis and continuity plans, evaluate the supply chain, identify potential points of failure, get communication right, use scenario analysis, don't lose sight of other risks. I'm not going in details as we have esteemed panelists to discuss on the topic. Let me introduce distinguished panelists, Dr. Somdatta Singh. Dr. Somdatta Singh is the former vice chairman of the NASCOM Product Council, only woman to have ever held this post. She is also part of the core committee of WEP Women Entrepreneurship Platform by Niti Aayog and a serial Indian entrepreneur, mentor, and angel investor. Somdatta has mentored various initiatives that include Google Launchpad, Microsoft, and Target Accelerator. IIDT, Government of Andhra Pradesh, and is now the mentor of change at Atal Innovation Mission. She is also on the advisory board of Karnataka BizTech, IT, BT Ministry, co-trustee and director at Center for uh, Entrepreneurial Excellence and Digital Leadership Institute. Founder of IRA, a crowd-sourced fashion label, co-founder Amplicell, a health supplements company, and founder CEO at Anspun Group, one of the India's first technology-based marketing solution companies. She is also on the advisory board for Bloomberg Quint and has been a key speaker at several prestigious symposiums. She is a political analyst and has regularly appeared on debates across TV channels. Now we have another panelist, Mr. Pravir Roy, who is a serial entrepreneur and now is a co-founder Payment, a B2B fintech payments company, and has Visa at one its investor. He has worked in government, public, and MNC sector as vice president, CTO, and CEO, and Red Herring Asia top 100 awardees for promising tech startup companies. In addition, Probir sits on boards of several private, public, and industry organizations like WASME. I'm not taking too much of time. I am handing over this mic to Probir Roy to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji.
Mr. Roy is there or not?
Yes, I can see he needs to unmute himself.
Okay.
Yes.
Unmute. Sir,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Warm welcome to all the participants and to Dr. Somdatta Singh. You've given a very long introduction, so I think we will just cut to the first question.
Yes.
Dr. Somdatta Singh, the first question that I had when I read about you and your profile was that tell us about your journey as a serial entrepreneur And
Right.
why did you want to become an entrepreneur in the first place?
Right. So, Praveer ji, Sanjeev ji, namaste to both of you. It's an absolute honor to be a part of the Voiceme, webinar today. Thank you so much for considering me, and namaste and a welcome to all the participants. I have a very interesting journey, more so because I come from a family of doctors where it is my entire family's legacy has been either in the medical practice or has been in administration. So when I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, it was a very unique, journey for me. And I share that with everybody here because I used to go with my father very frequently to Calcutta Club. That's where I hailed from. So I was born in Kolkata, and then I went for my education. I came for my education to Bangalore and then to US and then came back to India, and I kind of now juggle between India and United States for my businesses. But I would often go with my dad to Calcutta Club, and that time Calcutta Club had such erudite people visiting, including Mr. Tata, Vittal Mallya ji, Khaitan ji, and all of them, and they were all my dad's friends. And we used to go in a very humble ambassador. Though ambassador now to me is one of the best cars even now, but we would go in a humble ambassador, and I would see them coming in really illustrious car, beautiful Mercedes Benz. Some of them would come in then Bentley, and I would tell my dad that why don't we sit in one of those cars? And he said, being a doctor is a very noble profession. It is towards the service of people, and like we see in the COVID pandemic, they are the real heroes. So, and my parents were always my heroes, but I somehow aspired to have a different life. The other reason being that I never would see my parents home. So my dad and mom, being both surgeons, would often, be in the hospital for like 2 days, sometimes at a stretch, 3 days at a stretch. And I'm like, that's not the life I want. I want to have more control. I want to be more independent. But after I passed, the medical, test, and I got a rank in AICTE, but I didn't take it up. It literally left my father heartbroken. But I always had clarity that I didn't want to take up medicine as a profession, and engineering and something I was never drawn to. I always enjoyed reading. I had a very keen knack for economics. That's what I majored in. At that point in time, I was reading about Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, how they built empires. It used to always really, really excite me. And I used to look up to really big businessmen like Mr. Tata, and, I felt like, that's what I want to be. So I actually, Praviji, I actually ran away from home. I don't suggest anyone to do that here on this webinar, but it did happen. And it was forced. It's not that I wanted to run away, but my father gave me a choice. He said, either medicine or you're on your own. And somehow the on my own sounded like I was anyways on my own because both my parents were so busy. How different will it be? So I was always researching best places to go and study economics and management, and Bangalore was always on top of my list. So I had Delhi and Bangalore, but Delhi, as we all know, is not very secure for women. And in early 2000, I was like, Bangalore is a lot safer. So I kind of decided to move to Bangalore. And only when I came here did I realize that, the 5,000 rupees that I had saved from all my Durga Puja savings will not even last me a month. And that's how my journey started. So I came to Bangalore, found a dormitory, and indeed the dormitory that I was staying in, I started providing services. So I learned how to do threading. I would do that for the people who were staying in the paying guest. I learned how to make chocolates. I would sell it at my college to earn money. I think my stint as an entrepreneur, as a hustler, as a survivor started when I was just 16 years old. And when I then graduated, from Bangalore University, top of my class, economics gold medalist, my father came down, and 3 years he did not speak with me. He came down and he was in the front row because I was receiving the medal from the governor, clapping for me, and I could see how proud he was. He had tears in his eyes, and he just told me one thing: it's very, very easy to aspire and to be a rebel, but it's very, very difficult to implement and have a cause. So you converted yourself from being just a rebel to a rebel with a cause. And the fact that I could survive the 3 years on my own without taking a single penny from my parents, earning on my own, sustaining on my own, gave me the flavor that wanting to be an entrepreneur versus being an entrepreneur, being self-sufficient is very, very different. So that's how my journey started, Praviji.
Wow, what a inspiring story, and I can also relate to it. I mean, being a Bengali middle class doctor family girl to
Yes,
run away from home from Calcutta to go to a totally different city in some other part of the country is not something they let their girls do so easily. So I think full credit to obviously your father to see he would be very proud to see where you've reached today, and also full credit to you for actually actioning that thought or that vision or that aspiration rather than just sitting in the corner and doing adda on it. So this
you know,
brings me to this brings me
that's
to the
the
second question.
yes.
Sorry, this brings me to the second question, Som, that today businesses are going through tough times, and you are also a small business. I am a small business. Post-pandemic, it's been quite chaotical. So
Right.
obviously, some of the new age companies are benefiting on this pandemic, though some tech companies may have to take a hit because obviously the revenues have taken a hit. So, what do you suggest, or what do you see over the horizon for young companies or small businesses, that some tips that you can give in these times of stress that they
Right.
should try to follow, or some things that they should be automatically wary of as they go down the next few months or maybe even years?
You know, that's a very, very important and pertinent question you ask, Pubiji. The thing is, I think in entrepreneurship, one of the key essence of entrepreneurship is the ability to take risk and always have a plan B. You know, I have learned this from very early on, in my stint as an entrepreneur, that you always have to plan for adversity. Well, we were one of the lucky few who, during this adversity, could find an opportunity. And as I speak with you, I was the first woman to actually launch a branded COVID merchandise line, which included N95, PPE kit, OPD kits, because I could well analyze in early Feb itself that things are not looking like it's going to be very positive. So, how do we diversify? Well, the good news for us was that we were already a very large e-commerce company. So we are a global company, of course, between US, Manila, and India, we do over 100 million 150 million in revenue, as of 2019. But the thing is, we are in the space of health supplements. We are in the space of fashion and in the place of beauty. Now, all of them took a hit because the moment the shutdowns were announced, e-commerce fulfillment was completely stopped. So we quickly started doing our production for these PPE kits, for the N95 masks and the OPD kits. And as I speak with you now, it's like close to a $2 million business within the last few months. But why am I talking about this, Praviji, is that diversification and planning is very, very important especially for SMEs. Because what
Hmm.
happens is, I'll give you an example. In India, like Sanjeev ji said, the backbone of our country is the SMEs. 40% of the employment comes from there. We are going to be a $228 billion segment by 2020. We were growing at a 28% CAGR year on year. And industries form a very big backbone for it. So how did people start quickly diversifying? The industries that were in garments quickly started becoming suppliers and manufacturers for PPEs, for masks, for overalls, and so on. So they quickly started mitigating that risk using the capacity that they had to convert themselves into more utility focused production, which is what is the need of the hour. Because this situation, even though you can control COVID, maybe with a vaccine and so on, it's not going anywhere. Viruses don't die, so it's going to be very much between us. It's just that we have to live within it. My tips to all the SMEs who are there today, whether you're in tech, whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're in servicing, one of the things key important to remember is India actually has a huge opportunity right now, especially for those who are in manufacturing. We have now become the go-to alternative against China. The anti-China sentiment is so strong across the world is that most of the people are shifting their manufacturing base to India. And I can guarantee you that because I'm a part of the Amazon's million dollar seller group, which has all the multi-million dollar sellers from across the world who are a part of the group. Most of them are shifting their manufacturing base to India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Now, Vietnam and Malaysia has only competency in a few segments, but India is very diverse. So India's competency is not just restricted to textile, but it is also in electronics and hardware manufacturing. Though we are right now only 3.3% of the world's total market when it comes to hardware and electronics, but there is a huge opportunity there. That is the first point. The second is tech. I think our PM took a very strong stance against China, which was imperative, that banning of the Chinese apps, which I think gives us an opportunity to leverage the huge consumer base of 1.2 billion populous country that we have, to leverage that and build our own technology infrastructure. We need to have our own Zooms. We need to have our own TikTok if need be, because even if Facebook looks at India for their largest ad consumer base, because we are such a huge affluent aspirational consumer base. So I think for technology, this is the biggest boom time, especially those who are into into products, right? Time to file our patents, time to get our IP in place, and time to get our valuation, because people are investing in India. The third part is services, an industry that has taken a huge hit during this pandemic because they're dependent on clients, they're dependent on retainers, and sometimes most of the clients have cut down on their spending. So what I suggest for the services companies is to look outward in. We need to start depending on just the clients we get here. The platforms like Upwork, FreeUp, Fiverr are there because there are so many consulting assignments that are there where people are looking at India as a go-to partner for them. So I feel that the opportunities are there, but we need to be very smart in leveraging them. The other and the final thing is spending. I think we got to be very careful about how we are utilizing the manpower that we have. Like, we were lucky, we didn't have to fire anybody, we didn't have to cut salaries. Indeed, we are hiring, but it's important to know where you are doing it. Like, if you are in retail, you got to quickly move to e-commerce, because Industry 5.0 is about hyper personalization, and hyper personalization is only in e-commerce. Like Amazon and eBay, Probirji has seen 27% new subscribers. They're completely new, coming from tier 2 and tier 3,
Absolutely.
which was so difficult for them to penetrate. So I think these are some of the tips that we need to quickly move to Industry 5.0, move online, go into more diversified platforms, and also diversify our manufacturing and become a multi-floor manufacturing format where you can have 3 or 4 different product types coming out of one manufacturing plant, so you can do away with idle capacity. So I think those are some of the tips, and I know you have a lot of other questions, so I will answer as we go forward.
No, I'm listening to you with rapt attention. Clearly, you're a student of economics because you gave a very wide perspective and painted a great landscape. 2 or 3 words which struck me, and I'm sure it would have struck the other participants who are listening, is you mentioned diversity, flexibility, and early on you said hustle. Now, I liked when I was looking at the profile of yours and your company, I liked that you had made a pivot very fast from being a e-commerce, fashion, design, tech marketing solutions company. You made the pivot to medical textiles. You
Yes.
made the pivot to e-commerce. And being a small company in India with offices overseas, you've made a $150 million company, which is not a small thing to do. And this probably has created the path for you to be able to accelerate your growth because of your speed of actioning that where you ought to be as versus where you are. I think that's a great learning for entrepreneurs. So that brings me to the third question, is that, when I talk to people like you, and on many, even in the last forum, somebody asked me, I'm an entrepreneur. Should I now shelve my plans till things become normal. So my question to you is, should entrepreneurs shelve their plans, park their passions and beliefs till things turn around or things become more certain? Or as entrepreneurs, as risk takers, should they plow on regardless?
I think entrepreneurship is a mindset, Prabirji. I don't think that mindset is actually supervised by situations. I don't think entrepreneurs should shelve their ideas at all. This is the time to actually press that paddle on the
Okay.
accelerator, because I think the opportunity is way more now. If you remember, Praviji, that every time a revolution or a big movement that has happened, or a shift that has happened in entrepreneurship, is always because of a crisis. Whether it's the dot-com bubble, whether it was in 1980s, the challenges that the global economic socio-economic challenges it was facing led to the internet boom. So what I look at is that this is the time to put the pedal on the accelerator. And you said something very, very important, which is what, I have always done. See, I started my career as a tech entrepreneur, which was a mix of tech and services. And as I speak with you, Unspun is sold. We already have gotten acquired. We already knew we were going to exit by 2020, because we knew that you can't scale that company beyond that level.
Sure.
So we had a growth plan. We scaled it to a level, but the goal was to get acquired. So to all the listeners and my friends who are there on this, on this webinar today, I'm going to just tell you one thing. Don't be too attached to an idea,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
detachment is the most important foundation of a true entrepreneur. You need to know when you need to make your exit. So you only 2% of companies can become Google, but the 98% successful ones get acquired by a Google. So you can become a Google or get acquired. That vision should be clear, but don't get too attached to the idea. Know when to exit. I exited my company at the right time. I invested in different platforms, especially e-commerce, in 2015. Started with a health supplements brand, which is purely e-commerce. We don't even sell in retail. But that one health supplements line, which has 34 SKUs, does $12 million of revenue for me with a 47% profitability. So the thing is that you got to know where is the demand. Today's demand is in nutraceuticals, in health, in
Yes.
in education, in technology. So you need to understand where you're investing your time and energy. And if you're not in those booming industries, it's important to quickly pivot and move to something else. But entrepreneurship, I think this is the right time. This is the
Okay.
right moment, because most investors who have invested in technology in US and elsewhere are looking to India, because they know they can get better products at a lower valuation, and most importantly, they will get more competent people, because the top 50 companies in the world, 70% of them has Indian leaders. So we automatically are very good at leadership, but where we lack is execution. So we need to be smart about execution and pivoting. I think that's my mantra that has allowed me to survive all the challenging times I've had. And I have failed. Pravitji, I have failed. I have made serious mistakes where I went big into retail in 2017 with my fashion label. And I quickly realized that it will not work. So I tried that. I lost $1 million in a matter of 6 months. So we opened up in big malls, and we realized that it's not scalable. I'm so happy
Right.
I shut down the store, even though I lost a lot of money. But look at the situation now. I would have been in a deeper grave if I didn't quickly move out and forget about the losses and worry about that. Okay, how do I make more than what I've lost, and quickly pivot into e-commerce and grow my brands.
Yeah, I think again, what I think very big learnings for people on this webinar, what I think Shom is saying is that step on the gas. This is not a time to be in idle mode or with your brakes on. Step on the gas, be smart, try and pivot. And main thing she said, and I think a lot of Indian entrepreneurs forget this, but they start with this in their head, is don't remain sentimental about your business. If something is not working, move on. Fail, but fail fast so that you can take that learning and start a new journey where the probability of you succeeding is higher than the confirmed probability of you failing if you continue to do nothing. So I'm
Absolutely.
glad you said that, and it's very important to hear this from you, Shom, because I see this a lot amongst my friends also. But anyway, Bengalis are supposed to be sentimental and emotional people. So if they start something, they will die with it. So to
Right.
see you breaking away from that mold is also a very inspirational to know, and obviously will be a great lesson for the other people. Now, you do a lot of work in NASCOM as the chair of the NASCOM Products Council. Now, that's a very important function and an important role. Tell me something, how are you helping smaller companies in NASCOM stand out, because they will be more nimble and they will have probably an edge over the big guys in their speed of action or speed to market. So how are you adding value to NASCOM Product Council by encouraging smaller companies in the tech space?
Mhm.
And overall, how is NASCOM perceiving you as a person who adds value to the Productivity Council?
I think it's a very interesting question you asked, Prabhidar. So, for everybody's knowledge, I was elected. So, I stood for election. I think I was the only ever woman and an entrepreneur to stand for election. As most people know, that NASCOM is more of a corporate, body. But now they've become very agile. They encourage entrepreneurship. They encourage entrepreneurs to be a part of it. I was the elected vice chair between 2017 and 2019, Prabirji. And during my tenure, because I was the only entrepreneur in the whole council, the only one.
Oh, wow.
Everybody was a representative of a company, whether
Yeah.
it was Accenture, whether it was Manthan Systems, Microsoft. So they were all employees of these companies who were the elected representative. But I was the only one who was running a company, and I had another woman leader who was an investor. So we two, she runs Saha Funds, and I was running Unspun at that point in time. And when I took over the realm, I didn't even turn 30. I was 29, and I turned 30 after I took over the position of vice chair. It was very daunting, because imagine the average age of most of the people in the organization is above 40, right? And you are young, you're a woman, and sometimes it's important that you're taken seriously. So what I did was I focused on doing work which will bring value directly to the ecosystem. And I am very happy to share with you, Prabirji, that the entire council was so supportive. People often think that women don't get support, and it's about women empowerment. I think it's not the truth at all. That's not. The battle is equal for men and women. It is about who is more good in terms of putting things forward and actioning things. So I had tremendous support from the council members. We were the first people who set up the Israel Innovation Corridor, which was in the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the India-Israel relationship. And we set up a corridor where Indian tech companies can actually go now to Israel, get supported and funded to jointly work on innovation which can be applied to the rest of the world. Well, it's a known factor that Israelis are brilliant in their innovation, in their technology, their deep tech, their education is at an absolute strong level. We wanted to have an exchange corridor that will allow the Indian tech companies to work with them, understand how they're so good in execution, so good in terms of growing their companies and brilliantly taking those companies global and getting acquired. That's what they're known for. So we as a council leader, I worked with the managing director of Accenture, Avnish, and I worked on this project together, and we executed it flawlessly. We also took a bunch of companies from India to Israel as a part of the product, information exchange thingy. And now, as I speak with you, NASCOM has exchanged with Mass Challenge, which is one of the biggest tech incubators in the world for India, which was set up by me and Avnish during that time. The second thing that we worked on was the Deep Tech Club. During my tenure, we were able to execute the first Deep Tech Club that allowed deep tech mentors to connect with deep tech innovators and help them make successful companies, because it's very, very difficult when you're in deep tech, because the incubation period is 5+ years when it comes to deep tech technology.
Oh.
So it takes time. So if you're investing in deep tech, you can't get the money in 2 years or 3 years. You have to know it's a 5 to 7 years incubation period. So you've got to be patient. So we wanted to ensure that they have the right global connects and they could get projects from global companies, which would allow them that incubation time and also allow them sustenance and money. The third thing that we, of course, was of course a NASSCOM's baby. What we took it to the next level, we made it more international, is the NASSCOM Product Conclave. So it's been going on for over 15 years now, and we wanted to make it more international. We got a lot of people from across the world to participate. So there was more information exchange, there was more learnings. Emerge 50, as you know, that now is one of the most coveted awards that NASSCOM gives out, which is also an initiative of the Product Council. My most important thing was to do things for entrepreneurs, which is what I succeeded in doing. So during the tenure, I was not only just somebody who was chairing, but also executing initiatives that directly impacted the entrepreneurs, including the Bloomberg Quinn Scale Up program. So where it's like the own mini Shark Tank, where people would get funded, while they were on the show. So that gave them a lot of visibility. So these were some of the initiatives that I drove during my tenure, and I continue to be a member, but I am more now actively involved in other global councils like GEN, that is a Global Entrepreneurship Council, World Economic Forum, and so on. So my role has now become a lot more global.
That's great. So you must have come like a breath of fresh air to NASSCOM, and I hope they continue to go forward with many of the initiatives that you have set in place there, so that
Yes.
it doesn't become just a club for the large IT companies and their representatives. So
Yes.
I think that's a big change that you have done there. So coming back to small businesses, Shom, is that do you feel in India now that small businesses, Dr. Sanjeev said, is SMBs is the backbone of the country?
Absolutely.
A few weeks back, India was classified as that 99% of all businesses in India are small businesses because
Yes.
of the recent reclassification. So,
Yes.
given this, and given what's happening trade-wise, and given about what the PM's agenda is for be vocal about local, make that
Yeah.
global, do you feel that this is also a time for small medium businesses to also have a forum for young tech entrepreneurs, some kind of incubator or some kind of accelerator program that people like you can come and steer them or give them guidance or mentor them? Is there time for that? Number one. And number two, are there opportunities in small medium business in the areas of electronics and hardware and manufacturing? And if
Absolutely.
so, what is your view on that? Is there some business scope at the end of this tunnel where we see light, or there is an opportunity but not necessarily a business model?
The second question you asked, I will give a longer answer, but the first thing that you asked is yes, it's very, very important that SMEs have their own scale up incubator. See, SMEs are already doing a certain amount of work, is why they're classified, and they have a certain amount of revenue and a scale model. Problem is that the scale up model, the growth model is not well defined, which is what is required. For startups, there is Startup India, there is Invest India, there are so many platforms, right? Because startups get that incubation. But when it comes to SMEs, there is no hand holding. What happens is that we are always looking inward, like we are thinking the country is going to do something for us, there are certain institutions that is going to do. But I think WESTME as a body, which I'm so excited about as I was reading on all the initiatives that it drives, is that if we can have a central scale up incubator with people who are successfully diversifying to hold each other's hand. Now the thing that happens, Praveerji, is that manufacturing is isolated from technology, technology is isolated from consumer products are they're all different. Why is it like that? So if I am in a consumer product space, I cannot function without manufacturers because all my manufacturing happens through contract manufacturing. I am dependent on 3 or 4 manufacturers to do the 7 brands that I own in health supplements. Now I am the front end, but they are my back end. Now I cannot grow and scale on e-commerce without technology. We have APIs that we integrate. We have customer data, in terms of big data that we use. We use predictive analytics. We are using chatbots. So if you see, they're all very integrated. Problem is that our SMEs are very clustered and very bifurcated. They're not
Hmm.
integrated. There is
Right.
no proper channel to say, you know what, hey, Shom is right now within the nutraceuticals, one of the key players. She's a key player in beauty. We have a huge like lingerie line, Probiji, which is focused on only maternity wear called Erotica, which is doing like just in this year alone, we'll touch 10 crores of business, and we are across from Myntra to Flipkart to Amazon US to Walmart, name it. We're there everywhere. But my production happens in India. And that has been happening since 2018, way before PM talked about local to global. We were already doing that. And indeed, the antimicrobial fabric that we use, because it's maternity, nursing mothers use that. We have to be very conscious about it. The same antimicrobial fabric is used for a 3-layer 90% protection 3-ply masks. So the potential in India is huge, but there is no mapping. So what we need is the mapping, that how manufacturing, consumer products, technology can be married with each other, and all of them go into services. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to hire people for everything. I need people to do design. I need people to do labeling for my product. I need people to come up with the content for my product that goes on social media. I will outsource that. And that's where services comes in. So the plug and play is missing. And I think that's the incubation that we need for SMEs. Now, in terms of the first question answers the second in certain way, because without that incubation, the integration is not possible. And without that integration, the backbone of this country will not become stronger, because we now have to monetize on the challenge that China has and make our ecosystem of SMEs the most robust and the most disciplined. I think discipline is something that we lack, which is where China takes advantage. And that discipline can only come through policies. And I think our labor laws have to become more stronger. We need more stronger utility patent policies in India, which is a big gap that India has. The reason US and China are so ahead of us is that they patent everything. But when I was in NASSCOM, I was fighting for the software patenting policy for BG, because India's patenting policy is so weak. It doesn't allow, it used to not allow patenting without hardware intervention. Hardware ke bina to you can't even do coding. But at the end of the day, you need to allow more patents and IPs to be created in this country. We need a strong policy and IP infrastructure for our SMEs. If we can do that, Probirji, we are at the helm of becoming the biggest economy in the world. I'm telling you, COVID is a big opportunity for India. We just need discipline and practice and integration to make this entirely successful.
Actually, listening to you, Shom, I thought I was the only one, and probably Dr. Sanjeev was supporting me whenever we were saying is COVID is an opportunity and not a threat. And this theme we took from our first webinar onwards, and the bedrock of our seminar on webinars is that we believe that for small businesses, COVID is probably a greater opportunity than it's a threat. But while I was listening to you, it came to me that probably this integration and incubation can happen if we have a marketplace for sourcing and origination. Because then that will become the backbone where people who are sourcing and origination and supplying you, they're interconnected, they're boarded from the merchant side, you are boarded from the buying side, and that backbone or network, if I may call it, is going to allow small medium businesses to explore new markets just by being connected to that open network. So this brings me to the next question. Sorry, go ahead.
We need our own Alibaba, Probirji. We need our own Alibaba, because if we don't now create one, see, we have India Mart, we have GEM. They are not robust. They are not capable of handling the opportunity that we have. If we can together work and create, like you said, it's the most brilliant idea, and I can't tell you how big a fan I have been of this. I just feel we are not good at execution of it, is why the challenge is. But if we can create an Alibaba like we have for Alibaba, the small medium businesses in China today have an opportunity because of that. If we create an equivalent now, we are going to be on a roll.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, and probably at some point we can have a more detailed discussion on that. You are also an investor, Shom, and you have taken early punts on some companies. Why did you choose these companies, and post-pandemic, are they on the right track? Are they facing issues, or they're all managed to make the transition to the new normal?
It's again, you're asking me such prudent questions. As an angel investor, the reason they call you an angel is you're a little more forgiving than the VCs. Uh, so you really don't expect too much when you're making that investment, because you want to stand by the founders and help them through the entire process. You're not looking for something like a 10x or a 20x exit immediately. The way I chose all my investments were in areas of my interest, right? So wherever I found that there was a synergy, I invested in them. So some of them, like Tukitaki, Explara, which is a very well-known events platform, Bookpad, which got acquired by Yahoo, were some of the just some of the investments. And of course, I've invested in multiple other companies internationally as well. Events has taken a huge hit. So Explara is going through a transformation, but they're so smart. Way before 2020, they were quickly able to, identify that there will be challenges, and therefore they started becoming more of a SaaS company, which today has a huge potential for growth post the pandemic. So they moved the SaaS route. Tukitaki, well in advance, they started as an ad tech company in 2014, but they quickly realized that the opportunity is not too much in India. They moved to Singapore, and they got into AI and automation, and one of the most sought after companies for AI and automation in the banking and financial sector, right? So they already quickly kind of, innovated and mitigated, and now their demand has exponentially grown. One of few fashion companies that I invested in, they are more fashion tech. Some of them went through a downward spiral, of course, because the demand has gotten really, really low, and there is not as much fluidity or cash flow in the market. But what they've done is that they've stopped their focus on the Asia market, and they've quickly migrated to the foreign markets. So most of them have now entered UAE, have entered UK and US, and are providing, the same kind of solutions to those markets at a much more affordable pricing. But I have had 3 companies out of my investment portfolio that has completely failed. Completely. They shut shop within 2 years. One of them was a deep tech company, and that's why Prabirji, when I joined NASSCOM, when I took on the role, I wanted to personally work on the deep tech initiatives. This I'm talking about in 2015 when I invested. They were one of the pioneers in the 4G technology. They were doing 4G LTE innovation and pipe formulation and all of that. But there's no demand. Clients were not open to doing JDPs. They were not open to investing in those product ideas. Like if you see in Israel, the universities have a lot of money and fund, and the corporates have a lot of money and fund that they give to these innovators and say, it's okay, take $2 million, innovate, we'll wait for 2 years. But India doesn't have that concept. So they could not sustain beyond a point, and they had to shut shop. And one of the founders is I won't name the marketplace company, but he's a CTO of the marketplace company in India today. But it makes me sad because it had so much potential, and today Reliance is encashing on it. But it's the same Reliance who did not invest in them when they were coming up with the idea. So we have to break these challenges. So the other company that I would say, they quickly failed, which is a good thing because they've now started something else altogether. They were in a tech services kind of a model, within data, but they were doing the data for a certain segment, which is very difficult to penetrate, but they quickly pivoted, and now they're doing data for e-commerce, and they're doing phenomenally well. So for them, the failure was a first attempt in learning. Like I say, Swami Vivekananda says this, right? And I'm a big follower of his teachings, is that it's not how many times you fail, but how quickly you get up is what makes you a great entrepreneur. So, that's why he says detachment is a theory of Advaita concept, as you know, Prabirji, that the Advaita concept believes that the Atman and the Brahman is one, so you have to be detached to grow. So that's something which I am a big believer in. And so yes, that's been my portfolio, and I've invested in a lot of other e-commerce companies as well, brands which are e-commerce. But my area of interest is beauty and healthcare, because that is where the highest demand is. And all of those companies are doing very well, very, very well. And Praviji, another interesting thing, they're actually Indian companies, but they all sell in US because that's where the money is.
Yeah. I like the last statement, Shom. Indian cost, dollar revenues. That's a great business model
Yes,
to have.
yes.
But it's also good to hear you saying that you are really practicing the non-sentimental entrepreneur kind of approach, which is giving you a lot of benefits. I think we are more or less coming to the end. Is there any particular question that you have to me before we hand over to the our participants to ask us questions?
So, Praveen, I've always been very, I'm a follower of the work that you do, and you've done so much for this segment. And you being in the board of WASME, what I want to know is what are some of the initiatives that WASME is taking up to help SMEs during this time, where SMEs like us can participate and add value and enable a better growth and acceleration?
So this question, I think I will pass it on to Sanjeev. I think he will be able to better explain this, and then I'll probably top it off with my own observations of that initiative. Sanjeev, would you like to take this question?
Yes, yes. Uh, Very rightly said that means you have to be succeed in your life. And SMEs are the backbone of our economy. And as far as my knowledge is concerned, three pillars of business. One is the credit, another is the technology, another is the market. Credit, fixed capital, and working capital. Then you can have the technology for manufacturing, automation, 3D technology, robotics, for services, AI, ML, blockchain, and other technologies are there. As far as market is concerned, local market, then national market, international market. So we are means supporting SMEs, all means three pillars of business. So how you can contribute? The major part of that means the major challenge, as you have also mentioned, that hand holding is the most important part for SMEs, and there should be some integration. So we are lacking in that, and majority of the MSMEs they are facing this. I had the opportunity to meet Sri Piyush Goyal ji in the month of January this year, and means we were invited to they were just understanding what are the challenges the MSMEs are facing. I categorically mentioned 3 points. One was the awareness of the schemes of government, so they are not aware of that.
Yeah.
Majority of that they are not aware. Second was the hand holding, and the third one was the marketing. So they have a very good means product, but they are not able to market their products to different market. That is the challenge. So how you can contribute to them? That is the thing. Recently,
Yeah, just
we had integrated MSMEs with the startup, so that we
Mhm.
can have the we can bridge that gap.
yeah. So just to give you a little more granularity on that, Shom and other people who are listening to us, is that under the stewardship of Mr. Agarwal and Dr. Sanjeev Nayak, he has started this series of webinars. So in the last 2 months, they have done nearly 15, 16 webinars, number one.
Mhm.
Number two is we are launching specialized paid webinars for entrepreneurs in SMBs in how they should adapt to the new normal. So, what business strategy, how they should pivot, how they should do scenario planning, what are the HR and people issues, where are the opportunities. So, we are launching a series of webinars which will be in September, which I
Mhm.
am actually driving and will be bringing to the market. So that's the second series that we are trying to get to impart some knowledge, impart that awareness, keep that connectivity and connection to the small businesses so that they can actually get some toolkit that we pass on to them, which they can use in their day-to-day business life. So that
Mhm.
is what we are doing. And then, as you said, Vasme is doing a lot of other initiatives, but I think Vasne's main role is trying to bring the policies and the technology together and communicate that to SMBs so that they have a one-stop shop for all their problems, all their issues, and a one-stop shop for even getting them more enabled so they don't have to run from pillar to post. So with this, I would like to thank you, Shom, for really enjoyed. It was as inspirational and motivational for me as also I'm sure for many of our participants. So with this, I want to thank you for your time. Dr. Sanjeev, thanks for hosting us, and over to you for taking questions from the participants.
Yeah, the floor is open for question answer. Any question? One by one, you can ask question.
Yes, excuse me.
Yes.
Yes, as Miss Sam Datta said that she was doing the small types of work, that making chocolates and selling in the colleges, and as she invested her money for her personal for her further use. So as like that, I have also planned something, that first of all I'm going to do some small works to contribute my money for my future business, as I am inspired with a US business woman. She is named as Stephanie Loren from US, and she shifted to Canada now. So I'm inspired with her, that she has started her own business, and when she started her business, she was not having a $10 to pay for her flight, for her flight. I mean, for the luggage, or for her luggage, carrying luggage for her flight. Okay, so what she did is, she was not able to pay that, and she was so I was inspired with that how she invested her money in her business to start, and that was so small, and that business was so small that time, and competing that, she started doing that, and as on she's having such a great business. She's such a great business woman today, and she's from US. So I was greatly inspired with her. So I was asking you that, as you invested money, like as you collected money by selling chocolates and all, so that was your idea. So what can I do for that? Because I am over here, and I am thinking that I will be doing a small jobs to collect some of the money, as giving tuitions to students, and also what can I do? I think that, what do you think, that this idea may work or not?
So I think let me ask you a little differently. My question to you is, right, you want to start a business. Do you know what business you want to start?
Yes, I want to start a mall business. I mean, starting my own brand. As yesterday's webinar, there was that, and I also attended yesterday's webinar, and it was told that what is brand. So
Mm-hmm.
what I started, that I mean brand. So I also want to start the brand, my own brand, with I mean, in a mall, and in that mall there will be my brand selling, my products, my brand selling will be there, and also I'm going to launch my brand in, I mean, e-commerce. I mean, also I'm going to start it as an e-commerce, I mean, online shopping center also. So this is only my.
So my first point to you is, your
Yes,
brand in all, because you will end up wasting all. People
yes,
over the next few years are not going to go into at all, because of the concern
yes,
of hygiene, because of the concern of social, and it is only going to
yes,
increase. That is one. Now, coming to
yes,
savings, savings is a mindset, right? So it is
yes,
not that I sold chocolates, or I did friends, or I stitched. It's not about that. What matters is that you are passionate about.
yes,
About giving tuitions, and you feel that
yes,
through the power of education you can save your money, invest it in a,
yes.
but be very careful. Finance,
Ma'am,
you
your
don't.
audio is not clear, ma'am.
Can you do something? Can you hear me now?
Yes, 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 it's clear now.
So what you can do is that you have to ensure that whatever path you're taking to save money is something that you're passionate about. I think there are a lot of
Yes.
people who are somebody can go on mute.
Miss Shirin, request you to keep your mic little away from your mouth so that you can listen Shom Datta ma'am properly.
So my point is, if you feel giving tuitions is going to help you save money, why not? If you feel that, you know, you're passionate about fashion or you're passionate about baking, I know a lot of my friends who work in the day are bakers. So they bake cake for others by evening and night, and they're earning additional money so they can invest in their business. The thing with being entrepreneur is clarity. You have to be very clear about what is that you want to do. See, now when you said you want to have it in the mall and all, it made me a little worried because that's not a smart move. But yes, having it on e-commerce is a smart move. But you got to also know that starting a brand means that you need to plan for your inventory, you need to plan for your manufacturing, you need to have your cash flow planning, you need to plan for your marketing. Which market are you going to sell in? That is also very important. So I feel
Yes.
saving money is smart, but say using the saving money has to be even smarter. You cannot
Oh,
invest in
yes.
which doesn't have a future and lose all the money. So be very careful about that. But I think doing tuitions means that's the most noble thing. After, you know, after medicine and after you know, being a doctor, I think the teacher is one of the most noble of all, you know, all format of profession, because it is imparting knowledge, it is imparting education, and I think you're in the right path. You learn in the process, you earn in the process. Why not?
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're most welcome.
All the participants are requested to just mute your mic and ready with your question. Your next question. Any more questions?
So one thing I want to
Good afternoon.
share
Good
with all
afternoon,
the
madam.
okay,
I
go
have
ahead,
a
go ahead.
question here.
Yes. What's your name,
Is there
sir?
any common? I am
You
Ashok
can just
Nanda here from Bhubaneswar, Orissa.
Okay.
Madam, I have a small question. Is there any common platform available so
Yeah.
that all SME people can give the detail of their information about their services or product, anything, so that everybody can know it? Is there any common platform available like that in India?
I'm not aware of a common platform where you can give your information as an SME, but I know there is SME Rush, which is a international platform. But there are platforms like India Mart, which is for people who are selling products, for people who are selling consumer durables. It's a very good platform for them, for India, for them to be like, you know, discovered across the world. It is also GEM. GEM is the government portal of India, as you know. You can go and list your products if you want to sell to the government, if you want to sell to other B2B enterprises, those are there. But I am not aware of a single platform for SMEs in India where you can list your products and services. I think that's what Probir ji was talking about, that we need something similar to that. But yes, I'm not aware of it. Probir ji, are you aware of any single platform except for India Mart and GEM?
Yeah, I think our friend from Bhubaneswar is actually right that what Shom has said, that other than India Mart and GEMS, there are no other pan-India network. And this is a sorry state because there are 60 million MSMEs in India. Only 12 million are registered as GST registered. So that shows the huge gap between the total number of MSMEs and the people who are actually having some paper electronic trail. But this is what I was discussing with Shom, my friend from Bhubaneswar, is that if we had Alibaba equivalent or a like Nandan Nilekani's recently announced the Open Credit Enablement Network. People who want capital can go and find that capital. And similarly, a backbone where all MSMEs are also registered, and people who are sourcing and originating can also trade with people who are buying and selling. That type of electronic technology-driven marketplace or backbone is what Shom is talking about. We should have that, and maybe Dr. Sanjeev can take this up with the Ministry of Industries, whether A, government should do these, or B, let private sector do these. So at some point of time, it will need to be done, and I think that time has come. And it is people like Sanjeev and Agarwal and Shom and me and you all here who are going to be able to do that. If we don't do that, another 10 years we'll be having the same story. same question will come, and Shom will be as young as ever, and she'll give the same answer. That it is not there as yet. So
I
is
am
that
just
answer your question?
interfering. I am just interfering. Ministry of MSME is in process of developing Alibaba, Indian Alibaba, with name Bharat Mart, and that will be, I think, available for all the MSMEs here in India.
Very good.
When
That's
it,
good.
when it is going to come, sir? When it is going to come, sir?
Yes.
When it is going to come? Within
Yeah,
some few
that
months?
will be soon. That will be soon because COVID has already arrived, and it was announced. It was announced by our honorable Minister for MSME, Mr. Nitin Gadkari.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
Most welcome, sir. Most welcome.
May I ask?
After this COVID is over, they may be launching this platform.
May
Okay.
I have your attention to ask one question, please?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this is Mohammad Joinul Abidin. I am from Dhaka, Bangladesh. I would
Yes.
like to ask one question that e-commerce site. We know during this COVID-19 period, e-commerce site is doing better. But at the same time, we are also observing that standard of the product, delivery product, is not maintaining by the e-commerce site. So in such case, how government agencies or the business association can ensure the standard of the product? One buyer is providing offer, placing order for one particular color or one particular quality of the product, but he is getting delivery of another color or another specifications. So in such case, how we can maintain the standard of the product of from the e-commerce site? Thank you.
So let us answer this question with a little bit of knowledge when we say e-commerce site. See, e-commerce is bifurcated into many areas. You have marketplace, which is what Amazon, Flipkart, eBay, Walmart is. What a marketplace means is that a seller will register on the marketplace, list their product on the marketplace, sell their product on the marketplace. Now, what happens is that and remember something, that the marketplace takes the life. If somebody is not speaking, please go on mute. So if the marketplace is, if you're buying something from Amazon and the product is in FBA, which means fulfilled by Amazon, means the product is in the Amazon's warehouse. And let's say you ordered for a pink shirt and you ended up getting a white shirt. What Amazon does is it always protects the interest of the consumer first. So you can return the product and get your money back. The reason there is challenges today when you're getting product delivery, it is not really quality. It is more about the lack of people in the warehouse to do fulfillment. But remember something, when it is marketplace, the marketplace allows a full refund, allows full return. So no matter what product you buy, you can return it if you're not happy with the quality and get your money back. In the case where you're talking about quality of the product, so in a marketplace, the quality of the product is already protected by the marketplace pair, which is an Amazon or a Flipkart. If more than 1 or 2 bad customer reviews come on any product, they will suspend the listing. That is how it works. So a seller, like if I'm a seller, I have a KRA, which means I have to align to some performance regulations that Amazon and Flipkart has put. If I do not comply with those performance regulations, they can suspend my account, they can block my listing, and they can stop me from selling. That is the first model, which is the marketplace. The second model is the standalone e-commerce store. So if I am a person who has my own Shopify store through which I'm selling the product, then there is a question that comes of the quality. Now, if you are in Bangladesh, if you're ordering something from US and you got a substandard product, or if you're ordering something from China and you got a substandard product from a direct e-commerce store, you still have the opportunity to return it. Now, when you're talking about quality standardization, the government can't really do anything except for where you can go to a consumer court and talk about it, because it is the buyer and the seller. The government is not enabling anything here. But if you're buying through a platform like GEM, which is a government platform, and the supplier is not adhering to the quality, the government can suspend the listing. What the government does is to protect the consumer. The government in India, I don't know about Dhaka, so I'm not going to comment on it, but the government of India has consumer protection acts in place, which ensures that if a particular seller is selling low standard products for a given period of time, and the government has received consumer complaints, the seller's GST number, the seller's company registration is going to be revoked. So that policy is already in place in India. And for marketplaces, they already protect you. The last part is the aggregator, like the Alibabas. They're not a marketplace; they're just aggregators. So they're connecting the buyer to the seller. The money doesn't go to Alibaba; it goes directly to the seller. So in that case, again, you see the reviews, you see the ratings. You buy something after you see the reviews and ratings. If the reviews and ratings are not up to the mark, do not buy the product. But I feel during COVID, the reason there's been a little bit of an up and down is because lack of manpower in these warehouses to do fulfillment. So it is just a small glitch. I don't think it's going to last for a lifetime. The reason people buy on e-commerce more and more is actually that protects them from quality discrepancies way more than you go to a retail shop. Because you go to a retail shop in India, you buy, you can't return it. But in e-commerce, you can return anything that you buy. That's the beauty of e-commerce. It protects the consumer over everything else.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your nice answer.
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry to return again, but yeah, I also wanted. I was not able to explain what my question was. Okay, so I'm explaining you once again.
Is this going to be the last question, Probiji? Because I have a hard stop.
Yes, yes.
May I ask, ma'am?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes. So I am the student of BCom second semester. Okay, I'm so young. I have not started any field. Okay, I'm not at the age of starting all those works. Or so yes, I am the student of BCom. I'm from Jharkhand and Jharkhand Jamshedpur from JKS College of Commerce. So I was planning to have a business in future. So what I was telling that I am a tuition student as well as a teacher of JK school. I am teaching in JK school and I am the student of JK College of Commerce. So what my plan was that I am planning about to have a e-commerce job as well as my brand small. Okay, in future, maybe by step. So first of all, what I'm thinking about is I starting my business by small thing by my hand, because I am a creative. I have a little bit of talent on making about my hand goodies and all.
Sorry to interrupt you. Keep your question very short. Keep your question short. Yeah.
Yes, okay, sir. So what my thing was is, how can I start up my business? How can I start up my business? How can I invest a bit small money to get it? Future I can get profits and all, so that I can reach to that level in which I am thinking about to reach over there.
I think the problem is, I think you're very confused. So first thing is, I think age has got nothing to do with starting a company or a venture. I know enough and more people who have become billionaires before they were 18 years old. I'm not saying that we all have to be that, but what I'm saying is that age and education has got very little to do with entrepreneurship. और शायद मैं आपको हिंदी में बता दूंगी तो आपको शायद समझने में आसानी होगी. So I will, Probiji, it's okay if I'm allowed to speak in Hindi. Maybe that's going to be more comfortable for her.
Yes.
Okay. No, ma'am. You can speak in English. It's comfortable for me. You can speak in English.
First important
Actually,
thing is,
I was a bit nervous. Yes,
no,
you can speak.
I think you are a little confused. What I would want you to do is do one thing at a time. If you are right now feeling that you are young and you're not ready to start a business, focus on your education. That is one. Second thing is, you're taking tuitions, which is a great noble thing. Save the money from the tuition. After that, you first find out where your interest is. Business is not, okay, I will plant the seed today, I'll put water, I'll put cure, and then tomorrow there will be a money plant that will grow. No, you need to understand where your interest is. What is that you like doing? Do you like clothing? Do you like making food at home and selling? Do you like spices? Do you like handicraft? You need to first know what is that you're passionate about. And remember, in business, today, if you invest 1,000 rupees, you're not going to get 2,000 rupees tomorrow. It is about understanding that if I invest 1,000 rupees, can I make 1,100 and make it to 1,500 and make it to 2,000, so that there is a ongoing growth, and it's not one day 2,000, tomorrow 1,000, then 500, business went off. What I suggest to you is you take some time off. Think about what you want to do with your life. Do you want to work? Maybe, see, not everybody has to be a business person. And business does not mean that I will have 10 people working for me. I have a lot of my friends who are sitting at home, one person doing a business, making money and working. So it depends on what is that you're passionate about. Once you know what you're passionate about, what is that you're interested in, learn. First learn. Skilling is very important. Learn it. Learn the basics of it. Go to skill development, Center of India. Learn or go online. Learn about how to build a business, how to market the business, which are the right platform for the business that you're doing. There is a lot of homework that is required for you before you start. It is not that I decide today and tomorrow I'm going to start. It took me 5 years of planning before I started. So don't confuse, when I was making chocolate and selling at college, that was survival. That taught me how to be a hustler. But if I wanted to make that chocolate business into a $1 million business, then I would have had to think how the branding is going to be, how the packaging is going to be, where I'm going to sell, how will I ensure that customers keep buying from me, how to ensure that quality of the product is not compromised, which all places am I going to sell. So there's a lot of things that is included if you want to do a business long term. So skill yourself, take some time, learn, and then execute. Okay.
Very good. Thank you,
so much,
Dr.
Thank you so much.
Somdatta. Sanjeev, can you kindly give the vote of thanks, and then we can end. Thank you very
I
much.
would like to request Megha for vote of thanks.
Yes. I, on behalf of World Association for Small and Medium Enterprises, it's a great honor to propose the vote of thanks to everyone. It has been our pleasure to host all the participants of the webinar at this platform. The participants were very enthusiastic. I'm thankful to all the participants for joining in this webinar. I'm sure that the participants must have benefited by attending this webinar. I sincerely thank our chief guest, Dr. Somdatta Singh, for making this webinar interesting and meaningful. I would like to express our profound gratitude to Mr. Prabir Roy for his presence in this webinar. I thank Dr. G.P. Agarwal, Secretary General, and Dr. Sanjeev Laik, Executive Secretary WASME, for his inspiring mentorship. I am also thankful to Team WASME for providing us with all possible logistic support towards organizing this event. I once again thank everyone whose contribution has made this webinar a successful event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night and take care. Be safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.